to all of my Aries out there. So please make sure to get the book at Amazon.noble.com. The links will be in the description box below as usual. So the cards that I come up with are the Ace of Swords, Seven of Wands, Five of Wands, Ace of Pentacles, the Star, Four of Swords, Ten of Swords, Seven of Pentacles, Page of Swords, and last but not least, you have the King of Swords. So this is for Aries, all right? So what I'm seeing here for the Aries is I'm seeing how a lot of you Aries are in a situation where if any of you Aries were in a pseudo relationship where the two of you, right, was expressing the Five of Wands, fighting, that was a good thing, because ultimately it got you to see this person's true character, right? How you were offering something, Ace of Pentacles, substantial, right? Meaningful, right? Substance, right? And they were essentially offering you just theory. And we all know what theory is. Theory is BS. They're telling you, they may have been telling you that they're interested, but in actuality, they wasn't practicing what it is that they was preaching. So the Four of Swords is that you start to see who they really were. And now they're in a position where, you know, they had to lay down. They had to sit down in the sense that you and them aren't together anymore. So the Ten of Swords and the Seven of Pentacles represents you realizing that that was the case and that they were never really going to actually reciprocate, even if you tried to communicate with them, because, you know, that's, you know, again, the whole game situation, and how, you know, people try to overestimate themselves and try to, you know, overplay their value and all this other type of mess. So you have the Page of Swords and the King of Swords. So the Page of Swords and the King of Swords represents you just keep remembering how this person would try to, like, you know, really get you caught up in a bad, you know, get you stuck in between a rock and a hard place deliberately. And the King of Swords is that you are able to see through all of that. And now you're in a creative space where you're able to actually, you're able to actually figure out that ultimately, right? Ultimately, it's up to you. That it's no one's decision it's no one's power to make you happy. So let's clarify the King of Swords. So you have the Queen of Cups, Five of Swords, Six of Pentacles. So the Six of Pentacles came up for Taurus as well. The Queen of Cups and the Five of Swords represents how, yes, you need to exhibit self-love, and you Aries need to stop sacrificing yourselves, if you ask me. But you should, I should say should, you should stop sacrificing yourselves, because ultimately if you sacrifice yourself, you will be put in that position. And then you have the Six of Pentacles, and the Six of Pentacles is that in the end, the people who try to, this person, people collectively, who try to get you caught up will essentially not really be in real relationships, and will ultimately be surrounded by people who cares nothing for them, because this is what it is that they chose. You know, this is the type, I didn't realize I was going that fast. This is what it is ultimately that they really chose. They chose to be in that type of situation, you know, and people who choose to be in that type of situation, ultimately, things don't ever, let me lay out the cards again, things don't ever really go that good for people who you know, play that game. Because like I said before in my Taurus video, right, before I did this one, people who play the game, right, play the game, is all a play on value. So oftentimes people who want to play that game of value will do things that are really dumb and not very wise. They will essentially, they will have people and put people in the friend zone as backups. And it's like, listen, anybody who has a shred of self-respect, who's not putting themselves out there on the line like that, which they shouldn't, ultimately is going to see this thing for what it is and be like, okay, I'm gonna just bounce, because ultimately it's not really fair for anybody for you to do that. That's some demiurge. If we're talking spirituality, that's some demiurge, ego-driven, overly mentally ill type stuff. Because how are you asking, how basically what the game is, how are you in essence asking, without using words, but how are you asking somebody to sacrifice their life, not in a violent way, but asking them to give up their life and not do anything and sit there like a bump on a log, like, oh, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and wait for this person to actually choose me and stuff like this. You know what I mean? And what's so crazy about that is that what kind of a person thinks like that in the first place? You know, what kind of a person thinks like that in the first place for them to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to ask somebody to do that for me? So those people will ultimately be destroyed, right? Because of their own doing. This is the reason why it is that you see a lot of people jumping on YouTube who don't really have anybody. And the reality of the situation is can't really get anybody, but stunting like they have all these options. No, you don't. Because nobody, if they're being real, wants to be used and in that way, and hanging out with someone who in essence is going to use them like an object and then throw them away whenever it is that they done or whenever it is that they see fit. Let's clarify the Ten of Swords, the King of Wands, the Empress, the Queen of Swords. So the King of Wands represents this being a situation for you where the King of Wands is like you assessing how people may have talked to you, and you realize that it was wrong for them to do that, right? Because they were doing the same thing that I was just talking about, how, you know, they would try to like low-key make things difficult for you because you're not their quote-unquote first choice. Because I could say everybody, but a lot of people want to overestimate their value, quote-unquote, right? Without actually building that value up to where when they're engaged with somebody else, when they interact with somebody else, the value actually, because I'm not even going to get into it, because the Empress and the Queen of Swords, right? The Empress represents like, the Empress, okay, represents the value that you have. You know that you have value. But the thing is that value has to be seen and has to be proven over time. You got too many people who want to rush the situation, who are ultimately weirdos in a bad way, in a dysfunctional way, because they're trying to get everybody to hurry up and show their value. The value doesn't work like that. It has to be long term. How am I supposed to explain, for instance, to any person who I'm trying to get to know like that, my value? If I try to explain to them my value all in one day, then who's being fake? I'm being fake, because it's like I'm essentially talking myself up to do all this other type of stuff. But at the end of the day, what's happening here is that could just be all talk. But what about if this person wants to hang out with me and they actually give it a chance and they start seeing that value over the course of a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then now it's like, wow, this person wasn't playing around. And then the things that the Queen of Swords represents, you're going to also have to learn to, things are not as what they seem. Ultimately, you have to realize that things are not what they seem, and that you're in a better position, because you shouldn't want people like that in your life, and you shouldn't be playing the game. Nobody should, because that's what has you put in the meat grinder if you're not careful. So that's pretty much it. Comment on the video, like the video, subscribe. Peace.